explore it in our personal life. So today we're going to talk about TPM, the Trans-Pacific Maritime Conference in Long Beach, which will take place at the beginning of March. So you may think it's a little bit early, but we're going to talk about relationships today. And it's always good to start thinking about relationships and relationships building in advance of actually engaging with people, right? So TPM, and I've got this from their website, is organized by the JOC. And they say, and I would agree, it is the premier conference for the Trans-Pacific and global container shipping and logistics community. And it's basically a platform for a week of essential and intensive networking, negotiations, and relationships building. And there are multiple parties there from the international container shipping supply chain industry. Think of shippers, carriers, forwarders, technology providers, trucking operators, railroads, ports, terminals, and many, many others that participate. So there are lots of different people there and lots of different relationships. I've been a few times myself, actually. I won't be there this year. But definitely, if you sort out your itinerary up front, it is absolutely worth going. I would just say make sure that you bring comfortable shoes because you will be walking around for miles and miles. Okay, so for me, the key objective to attend something like TPM would be relationship building. So let's explore relationships in your personal life. So we have many, many, many relationships, right? At work, we have relationships with colleagues, with leadership, with our team members, internal stakeholders, providers, clients, etc. And at home, we have a lot of different types of relationships. Think of your partner, your kids, your parents, your siblings, your in-laws, other family members, friends, associates, shopkeepers, personal trainer, anyone else who's providing a service to you, really. And we could go on and on and on. So lots of different relationships in our lives. And really, some relationships are more important to us than others. And the ones that are not so important, we don't tend to put a lot of effort into those. But the ones that are, we really do tend to go all out. And sometimes we even give too much. Now, actually, the most important relationship there is the one that you have with yourself. If you don't have a good relationship with yourself, it's difficult for you to have a good relationship with other people. So I'm going to cover two types of relationships today. One is about work, and then the relationship with yourself. So let's start with work. So here are some questions to ask yourself. Does the company that you work for have a culture that actually aligns with your own core values? Because any relationship is very difficult to thrive if your core values are different and they don't align. So ask yourself this about the company that you work for, or even if it's your own company, right? Ask how your values align with how you're running your company. So how do they do business? How do they treat their people? Does the leadership tend to empower you or limit you? Are there opportunities for you if you want them? Do they expect you maybe to work out of office hours on a regular basis? Do you have too much to do? Many, many people in the supply chain industry have way, way, way too much to do, right? And talking actually to some of my logistic clients over the years, and some very, very recently, there are cases where the team is one or a few men or women down, and the rest of the team are then expected to pick up the slack and really still deliver the same standards. And they do that without extra pay most of the time. So basically, you'll be giving up your free time to work in a stressful environment, which really benefits the company, but it doesn't benefit you, right? So that brings us to setting boundaries. And it is so important in any relationship to set boundaries straight away. So if you do find yourself in a situation where you have allowed others to overstep your boundaries on a regular basis, that will probably that you're now stressed, maybe you're overworked, and you're definitely not feeling too good. So it's really time to start doing something about it, right? Now, the thing is, and I did say you have allowed others to overstep your boundaries because it is your responsibility. It's our own responsibility to be clear on what is and isn't acceptable for you. Because if you don't say, the other person doesn't know. And this, applies at work, but also obviously applies in your personal life as well. Now, one of the things that's very typical in business, and I hear it from a lot of people, I've been in this situation myself, is that people complain about not having enough time or other resources to do their job properly. But they are still doing it. They're probably doing it in their own time and with a negative vibe, but they're still doing it. So that's due to being hesitant about setting those boundaries. So think of a couple of areas where you can start to implement some boundaries. Start to say no to some things, because really, what's the worst that can happen? It's unlikely that you're going to get fired, right? And even if you did, that could be a massive opportunity for you. So reach out if you need help with starting to set some of those boundaries and identifying where you might need to set some boundaries. So now let's talk about you. How is your relationship with yourself? What's that little voice inside telling you? What do you say when you're talking to yourself? Are you appreciating yourself, or are you criticizing yourself most of the time? There's actually a great book by a guy called Shad Helmstetter, and it's called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. I definitely recommend you get it, because that was one of the biggest game changers for me when I started on this journey. So when you say you're going to do something for you, do you actually do it? Now, think of maybe the appointment that you made for the massage, or maybe you're working out in the gym, or you said you were going to go for a run or a bike ride, or you said you were going to spend more time with your family, or you're taking that holiday, having the afternoon off, really having it off, maybe treating yourself to some new shoes, eating more healthily, not checking emails in the evenings and at the weekend, and on it goes, right? So what are you saying to yourself that you're going to do, and then you end up not doing it? And there's always a reason, we believe, but there isn't really. It's really an excuse. So think about some of the things that you tell yourself you're going to do, and then you don't do it. You're basically not keeping the promises you make to yourself, right? You're not keeping the appointments that you make with yourself. Now, if it was with another person, you probably would. You'd be way more likely to do that, right? But when we regularly don't do the things for ourselves that we say we do, it very slowly but absolutely surely chips away at your sense of self-worth, right? At your self-confidence. And we start to believe that we cannot rely on ourselves, which really is true. And what then happens is that we start to look for security and validation from the outside world rather than from ourselves. So, a lot of people are looking for security in a job, right? So you think your job's secure, you're doing a job for security that you don't enjoy. But actually, as we well know, no job these days is ever secure anyway. Or maybe we're looking for validation from a partner. And then what happens, because we're looking at the outside for validation and for security, we start to allow people to overstep our boundaries, which then results in not feeling so good about life, right? Not very healthy. So to finish today, here's a little exercise about appreciation. So appreciation literally means to increase in value. So when we appreciate ourselves, we increase our value, and then we start to attract things and people and relationships of a higher value into our lives. So if you don't already have a gratitude journal, then start a gratitude journal every day. Write down 10 things that you're grateful for. And then for 3 or 4 of them, write down how you appreciate yourself in what you're grateful for. So here's some really simple examples. So I'm grateful for my washing machine, and I appreciate myself for sorting the washing and putting it into the machine. I'm grateful for my friends and the great evening that we had last week, and I appreciate myself for organizing it. Now do it for a week and then watch what happens. Would love to hear from you and see if life has started to change. Okay, so that was it for this week. Thank you for joining us. Next week, there will be an industry update. So in the meantime, enjoy your lunch. Bon appetit. Eet smakelijk, and see you next week.